Be live.
Good morning, everyone. This is a meeting of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. We are treating this as a public hearing, but also in the event that we do have any deliberations, we have noticed this as a public meeting. And because of that, I would like to do our roll call, commissioners, to confirm that we're all in attendance, given that we are using virtual technology. So good morning, Commissioner Cameron.
Good morning, I am here.
Good morning, Commissioner O'Brien.
I am here. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning, I'm present.
Okay, so we'll get started. Before we begin with our public comment period, I want to, of course, announce today is February 28th. And I think that all of us have front and center in our minds and our hearts, the people, resilient people of Ukraine. It's a sobering time for us. And I know that the entire team is keeping the citizens of Ukraine in their thoughts and prayers. So we have some important business to attend to, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Chief Delaney. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So before we get into the public comment, I just wanted to set the stage just a little bit for everyone, if I could. So, you know, the reason why we're here is ultimately the commission needs to determine whether or not the proposed development across the street from Encore is part of the gaming establishment. So this process started back on February 10th when the commission heard a presentation from Encore and their attorneys on the proposed project. And then following that meeting, we opened up a written public comment period that closed on last Friday at 5 o'clock. We compiled those Friday evening and forwarded them all to you so that you would have an opportunity to review the public comment that we received. We have received some stragglers after that, and we certainly want the commissioners to be able to hear all of the public comment that's out there. So we have compiled what we've received thus far and sent that off to you. If there are any further stragglers, we will continue to forward them to the commissioners. Just in the interest of you know, complete transparency. So today is the opportunity that the public has to provide oral input into this process. We did ask folks to pre-register if they wanted to speak at this meeting. We have 3 folks who pre-registered, and there may be a couple more that also would like to speak. We do notice that there are a number of folks who are on the phone. And if you did want to speak at this meeting and you have not pre-registered to us, if you could send an email to Crystal Howard just asking to be put on our list. So her email address is crystal.howard@massgaming.gov. So if there are folks here that didn't pre-register and would like to speak, please send that to her. Again, I'll repeat that, crystal.howard@massgaming.gov. And just before we get into this, so after this meeting, we have scheduled a meeting for next, a week from Thursday on March 10th for the commission to deliberate on this matter and potentially render a decision on whether or not the project is to be considered part of the gaming establishment. And so the proposed project as it stands today, if you recall, Encore submitted a project that was a little bit different than what we're looking at today. So the project itself consists of about 20,000 square feet of restaurant and retail space. An up to 999 seat event center with associated pre-function space, an approximately 2,300 space parking garage, as well as a pedestrian bridge across Broadway that would connect from the proposed development to the Encore Boston Harbor development. So with that, setting that stage, I guess we can now open it up for public comment, and I will call the folks who have pre-registered with us first, and then we will open it up to others if there are other comments that people want to make. And so first on my list I had here was Troy Siebels, who's the president of the Hanover Theater in Worcester and also president of the Mass Performing Arts Coalition. Troy, would you like to make some? Oh, and just one quick thing, just if you could try to keep your comments to about 5 minutes or so, just so we make sure that everyone has an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. And commissioners, thank you for your time today and for being open to this public comment. As you said, my name is Troy Siebels. I'm the chair of the Mass Performing Arts Coalition. We are a group of performing arts centers that are nonprofit and municipally owned across the Commonwealth. We were engaged with the legislature during the writing of the gaming statute, and we signed an impacted live event venue agreement with WIN when the casino was first licensed. As you know, the gaming statute prevents performance venues between 1,000 and 3,500 seats being built at the casino. We also signed, the impacted live venue agreement. It commits the casino and us to ongoing good faith communications and some collaborative efforts on both our parts to benefit both the casino and our performing arts centers. Our frustration is that those things seem not to really have been worth the paper they're printed on, either the statute or the letter. The presenting work that WIN has done so far, some concerts in the ballroom are a technicality, perhaps. Putting 2,000 chairs in a big ballroom and selling tickets to it might not technically be building a theater, but it's pretty clear that it's not in the spirit of the legislation. We believe that saying this new theater isn't part of the casino, it seems like another way to skirt the spirit of the rules through a technicality. We have frustration that Encore has moved so far down the road toward building a performance venue that's clearly in conflict with the spirit of the statute. And if they're able to ignore that so easily, are we to imagine that they won't be a predatory presenter in that theater? We do acknowledge that the revised plan has a seating capacity of up to 999, and which at least is in legal compliance with the statute. But I will also say that the conversations that I had and our other performing arts center had with the commission and with WIN were about more than agreement to forego venues of a certain size. They were about open lines of communication and establishing a playing field free of the predatory practices so many other casinos employ when they're booking events. We believe that there is a world in which both organizations can survive, but we believe that we are not on that level playing field right now, and we're grateful to the commission for helping to mandate not only the letter but the spirit of the gaming statute as well. That's all I've got today. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Troy. Kathy, did you want to interject anything after each speaker, or would you just like me to go on to the next?
Thank you, Joe. I do think that the commissioner should be able to ask questions of the speakers. Typically, we ask clarifying questions because it's a public hearing. We have marked this up as a public meeting as well, commissioners. So if you have questions for Mr. Siebels, we can legally entertain them. Questions? Commissioner, raise your hand. Commissioner Cameron? Commissioner O'Brien?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Siebels, are there other criterion in terms of the statute and the ILEVs, et cetera, where you see the agencies you represent and the casino operating in harmony, as you call it, and them having some sort of entertainment venue in the area that they propose?
Yes, I think it's really about communication. If we can be at the table together. They can certainly present in that 99 cent space, artists that perform in a 999 seat space without impacting most of our venues. But there's also potential for them to bring in the acts that normally play 2,500 seat theaters because their business model isn't the same as ours. And that would definitely impact us. So I think it's not a silver bullet restricting the venue size. It helps, but I think that it would help also to be in a continued dialogue.
And is there a structure that you have now with the casino in terms of dialogue?
We don't now. We could certainly put that in place.
Thank you.
Mr. Siebels, have you heard from Encore Boston Harbor personally since this proposal?
Yes, we did hear just last Thursday, I believe, and I have an appointment to speak with council tomorrow.
Excellent, thank you. And so just as a follow-up with Commissioner O'Brien, you did say there's a world in which both organizations could survive, and she asked for criterion. Is there anything specific, more specific than what you've offered today that you want to offer right now before we lose the opportunity to have your comments?
I think when we were working with the legislatures on the statute, we tried to go down this road and had a lot of trouble because there's so much that's just hard to define. You know, what is a predatory presenter versus a commercially successful presenter? It's very hard. You know, we could ask that the commission prevent Wynn from seeking radius clauses so that their artists can't perform at other venues, for instance. But we work in an industry where that's not a silver bullet either, because they don't sign a radius clause. They just say, hey, I want to book this artist. You're not thinking of playing anywhere else in Massachusetts, are you? Oh, no, not at all. Here, you can have this date. We're in a wink and a nod industry. That's just the reality of it. And so it's very hard to put a strict framework around something that would be beneficial to us. I come back to the dialogue because we can't really find a way to enforce our survival.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions from Siebel?
I'm sorry, I did. I have one more follow-up. Mr. Siebels, you're using the phrase predatory presenter. Is that a term of art that you can define, or is that just a phrase that's kind of a general?
It's not a defined term. It's an industry standard term for a presenter, commonly a casino presenter, who not only seeks to be successful, but seeks to exclude everybody within, say, 100-mile radius from performances.
And aside from casinos, are there other industries that would also frequently fall into that definition?
I don't know offhand of other industries that perform. Yeah, there are commercial presenters as well as nonprofit presenters, but they are also largely working on the same business model, whereas the casino is arguably not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siebels. I'm not sure if you plan on staying during the hearing. You certainly are welcome to. And at the end, Chief Delaney, I'm sure he could be invited back for any comments at the end of the other commentary, but we appreciate your input very much. Joe?
Great, thank you. So next up, we have Dan Rabinovitz, who is an attorney that is representing the city of Medford, as well as Bill Blumenreich Presents. Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Delaney. Good morning, everybody. I just want to make sure that my submission that I emailed on Friday was received and circulated. I assume that's the case. I see a lot of people nodding. Thank you. I don't have a lot more to add above and beyond what's in that written submission. I'm focusing on two issues. The first issue is really corporate governance and how Massachusetts law treats piercing the corporate veil, corporation to corporation, in various circumstances. And I would submit to the commission that the fact that East Broadway LLC is a wholly owned subsidiary of Wynn Resorts, as is Wynn Mass LLC, the entity that holds the license. I would say that under Massachusetts law, if this was brought to court, that the chances are very, very high that a court would find that the same control group controls both of those LLCs, and therefore they are really one and the same. And so that obviously goes to the argument that the commission should find that in fact they do have jurisdiction over what's going to happen at the East Broadway parcel. And the second issue may not be entirely formally requested for comments on this second issue, but I think it's important for the commission to know what's been going on. And ultimately for my clients, and I'm sure for many other theaters, the fact that the Encore has continually had concerts where seats have been sold and seats have been put in their ballroom that they built that are between 1,000 and 3,500 seats, as I've outlined in my letter on several occasions. That's a straight violation of the law. That's not a violation of the spirit of the law. That's a violation of the law. The law said you, as a gaming licensee, thou shalt not build an entertainment venue with 1,000 to 3,500 seats. And in fact, they did build an entertainment venue. It's the ballroom. They use it for other things too, but they use it for entertainment. And they've been violating the law by having various events. And as I said in my letter, as I indicated, there's actually one planned in March. It's a fight night. And, you know, I just want the commission to be clear about something. The Encore has every right in the world to put on entertainment events, okay? But what they can't do is they can't put on entertainment events with in a room where there are seats between 1,000 and 3,500. And so as the commission decides what the right and fair and just thing to do is, I would suggest that they're not being limited on putting on entertainment events. They just can't do it so that it takes customers away from what I'll call the mid-level theater operators, the venues close to the Encore, for example, the Chevalier Theater in Medford. Those shows are competing with that venue. And if they continue to be allowed to have entertainment events where they're having seats in their ballroom over 1,000 or under 3,500, that's a violation of the law. And the only other thing I would add is that in addition to the conversation that was recited in my letter when Mr. Blumenreich went to speak to the Encore before the pandemic shut down many entertainment events, you talk about a dialogue. One of the things that he offered was to try and work with the Encore, and that they could have shuttle buses that would go back and forth between the casino to the Chevalier Theater, and so that everybody would be in a win-win situation. Tickets would be sold in Medford at the theater, and gaming clientele at the casino could have the ability to go to shows as part of their experience with Encore. And he was basically told, we're not interested in that. And so I think that taking everything together, the flavor seems to really be that the Encore is not interested at all in complying with this restriction about the number of seats that they can have in their entertainment events. And I think therefore it would be appropriate for the commission to either fine them, as I've asked for, because of that, or at least issue a very stern warning that they're not to have events anymore in the ballroom between 1,000 and 3,500 seats. Because I will tell you, and I don't say this to be over aggressive or to be a jerk or anything else, but I will tell you, if we find out that they are going to have those kinds of events again, one of the things that my clients are going to consider is to have me file something in Superior Court for injunctive relief on that. I really don't want to have to do that, but if necessary, you know, that may happen. So I'd be interested to know if any of the commissioners have any questions for me.
Commissioners, questions from Mr. Rabinovich. First off, thank you, and thank you for your written submission. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for
Commissioners, questions. Commissioner Cameron, you're all set. Commissioner O'Brien, all set. Commissioner Hill.
The only thing I would say, and I appreciate the comments on the letter that you sent to us, but this sounds like it's two very different issues. One that's happening currently and what we have to decide about what oversight we have in regards to the development across the street. So I think, Madam Chair, it's something that we need to look into, but I think it's two very different issues of what we're listening to today for a hearing and open comments, but I do appreciate the comments, and it's something that I think we do need to look into.
I agree. I agree with that. I have to say I'm very appreciative of Mr. Rabinowitz bringing his concern to us. You know, it is certainly not related as we think about the entertainment venues, but I appreciate that distinction as well, Commissioner Hill. I'm all set too, Mr. Rabinowitz, and that's usually because your letter was very clear. I don't have any follow-up questions. It's because of the clarity and not because of lack of interest. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Delaney.
Thank you. So next up, we have Kenneth Kraus, who is representing the Friends of the Chevalier Auditorium. Ken, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. And was my letter received as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
So yeah, Ken Kraus, I'm a Medford resident, and I'm on the board of directors of the Friends of Chevalier Auditorium and Gene Mack Gym. Chevalier Auditorium is the city of Medford's 1,850-seat performing arts center in Medford Square. And our mission for the last almost 30 years has been to provide financial and community support for the venue, which is a very crucial element to our community, both from a cultural standpoint and an economic standpoint. As I said, I submitted the written comments, so I'm not going to elaborate on that very much, but I'll say the letter contained my analysis of the four-part test that the commission is using to determine the East of Broadway project, whether or not it should fall under the gaming regulations. My conclusion is it should. And we just want to highlight a couple of things that I did mention in there, particularly because some of the information has come to light since the February 10th presentation, and some people on the call and others who have been following this might only be basing what they know about the project on what Encore presented on February 10th. Well, 5 days later, the Wynn Resorts president and chief financial officer had a conference call with investors following the release of the quarterly earnings for the company, and also an announcement the same day that the Encore Boston Harbor property and buildings were going to be sold and leased back. And the comments that day were quite in contrast with the comments that were presented to you by the other Wynn representatives just 5 days earlier. For example, the leaseback sale agreement specifically mentioned that the one of the benefits of that setup was to infuse cash in the company to construct an expansion that is expected to include non-gaming amenities and covered parking across the street. Now, if you recall from February 10th, the Wynn Encore people stressed repeatedly that this was an entirely separate project, both in terms of the ownership entity and also the type of activities that were going to be going on over there. They never said it was anything like an expansion, but the chief financial officer and Wynn president 5 days later referred it repeatedly as an expansion, and an expansion that would drive Encore Boston Harbor to even higher levels of performance. So the fact that the previous commenters presenter said it was unrelated seems certainly questionable. The other thing that was notable, I thought, that Mr. Billings said was he specifically talked about the parking structure, and I'll read part of his comment that the growth of our adjacent areas through our upcoming expansion project, again across the street from the property, the expansion will see us add additional amenities and, importantly, additional parking. Parking, particularly on weekends, remains a constraint from us. Encore still has a tremendous amount of growth ahead of it. So if you recall from the presentation on the 10th, the parking deck presence was very much minimized, and the presenter said that they felt very few people would park in that parking garage and come over to the casino. Well, that clearly isn't the case. So that's just sort of some new information, I think, that should be considered in the analysis of what is before you, and that it demonstrates why the East of Broadway project is part of the gaming establishment, and you should rule that way. I do want to speak a little bit too about what the two previous compounders said, and I really think this situation about the events being presented currently is very related to this topic, and it's something that the Gaming Commission has never had an opportunity to even be aware of, probably, let alone rule on. So whether it be part of this ruling or as a separate ruling, I think this is the time to do it, because if the venue goes ahead and it's not part of the Gaming Commission, first and foremost, they can turn around the next day and make it 1,800 seats. So that's part of our concern, is that if it's not ruled part of the Gaming Commission, there's nothing that would preclude them from raising it back up to any number they want. And as was stated, they've been violating the prohibition on events between 1,000 and 3,500 seats almost from the beginning. They opened in June of 2019. In October of 2019, they presented their first show, the B-52s, which, by the way, they talk about predatory practices. The B-52s were all but signed to perform at Chevalier Theater in that year. Then the casino came along and offered the B-52s 3 times the amount that Chevalier Theater was going to offer them to pay there. So that's an example of the predatory practice. I guess that maybe predatory isn't the word, but they have an unfair advantage because they can offer these acts much more than the conventional theaters can, where their business model is they pay the act and they have to recoup the money through ticket sales and concession sales. That's not the model they use there. They can pay much higher because they're not reliant on income from the event itself. They have lots of other sources, much more lucrative sources, to cover their costs. So this is sort of a marketing tool for them to get people to come into the casino area, go to the show, often at a reduced ticket price or free tickets, and then spend money in the restaurants and the casino area where they cover the cost. So that's what the total different business model that we're talking about, trying to describe. So I think this is the appropriate time for the Gaming Commission to really look at, like you always do, is this entity that has the license complying with the license? And again, as Dan said, it was brought to the attention of staff in late 2019, and there was a staff change, and then COVID came and the shows ceased. So, but now they're back doing them again. So that's, I think, a very relevant issue that's related to what we're talking about. And again, why were the regulations that put in place? It was to protect the smaller municipal, independent, nonprofit venues that operate in the conventional business model, like I just described, where we sell the tickets and try to recoup the cost and make some money to put on future shows. And we don't have that other third revenue source or outside revenue source, even sometimes from other properties the casinos can use to cover the costs of the events that they're putting out for live entertainment. So, and if this is approved and one venue can be allowed to have this exclusion to the detriment of 10 or 15 other venues in the greater Boston area, it would really have far-reaching impacts. These are really crucial venues for economics, for one thing. Michael Bobbitt gave an excellent presentation to you on the 10th and talked about the value these venues bring. And each loss is to the community is great. More so too, because these are venues that the state and we as taxpayers and people who are elected to serve us have invested tens of millions of dollars in these venues. Chevalier Theater alone has gotten millions of dollars to update this 1940 building with new seats, with accessibility improvements, with air conditioning, which we got 3 years ago, which makes it a 12-month venue, which it never was. So we would basically be saying, if these venues can't survive in this uneven landscape, that we just put all this money into all these venues for what? We're basically throwing it away, because these venues aren't going to be able to survive. We're not going to get anybody that can book a show. No company would come in and book the show for the city of Medford, book events, because they know they've got both their hands tied behind their back when they're competing against the casino and its resources. And as Troy said, we're not against competition. Competition is good. More entertainment is good. Where I'm from, before all the high school sporting events, the crowd is told to be on their best behavior because the teams are friendly rivals on opposing teams, and that's how we view each other. Glenn Auditorium, Lowell Auditorium, we're friendly rivals on opposing teams. But today we're friendly rivals on the same team, and that is in support of a gaming commission ruling that the East Boston project is part of the Encore Harbor establishment, and also enforce the regulations prohibiting live entertainment on a certain size there, so we can continue to be competitive in this arena. The last thing I would say about what could be done to the question came up about to make this work better. One is just to have Win Encore live up to the agreement that they made with the impacted live entertainment venues. As was pointed out in the letters, they were supposed to notify that coalition far in advance if they ever decided to build an 1,800 seat venue, and talk about how they could be done in a way that would still maintain the integrity of the gaming statute and their license and everything they agreed to. Well, as they admitted at the February 10th meeting, they hadn't done that at all, and finally reached out last week. So there's been a number of examples where they've completely ignored that agreement, as was referenced earlier. So one of the things I think is important is that they are required to live up to their agreements. And one of the agreements, as mentioned, is to not have seats in anything they build anywhere on their properties, have venues with 1,000 to 3,500 seats. So thank you for the opportunity to go on about that.
Mr. Kraus, thank you for your written submission and for your comments today. I have a question that I'm not sure, I don't have the written comments in front of me, and forgive me, I might have read over them, but it occurred to me I should probably know this more accurately. Chevalier Theater and Chevalier Auditorium, two different entities. The auditorium and gym, you said has a seating of 1,850?
So it's the same entity.
It is.
So,
okay. I said,
yeah.
wow, I wonder what I wanted to make sure that I knew that, because I wanted to ask, well, why Chevalier? Give me the history of the name.
Sorry for the confusion. So the Chevalier Memorial Auditorium was built in 1939, opened in 1940 as a Works Progress Administration project. It was named after Godfrey Chevalier, who was he was a pioneering World War I aviator from Medford. And his most prominent claim to fame was he was the first American pilot to land a plane on a moving ship. And he was very adept at landing planes, taught many more well-known pilots like Admiral Byrd and others to do this early on. Unfortunately, he died in a plane crash a few years after his famous landing. So the building was named in his honor, and when it opened in May of 1940. So, but the official name is Chevalier Auditorium. It is interchangeably used Chevalier Theater. It was the high school auditorium in 1940 when it was built. The high school was attached to it. The high school had a major fire in 1965, and most of the parts of the building that could be salvaged were turned into condos, but the city was persuaded by residents to save the theater, and there's a gymnasium underneath, which is the Medford Recreation Center and Youth Center currently. So that's so confusing. So the
gymnasium is under. Okay, very helpful.
Yeah. So that's sort of the history of it, and it's theater auditorium. It's the same building. I think there's been more of a stress to kind of distinguish it from a high school auditorium when you've got, top-notch entertainers coming here to perform. That, the image you don't want is a high school auditorium. It's a beautiful building. It's been updated a lot. So, but that's the history of it and why it's the same thing. And it's 1,850 seats.
And that's what I wanted to confirm. And I thought just for clarity, the theater itself, the auditorium, seats 1,850 actual seats, correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
They're
That's
fixed
really
seats, they're
helpful.
not-
And-
not
and-
movable seats.
Thank you. I think I had read about the history of Chevalier before, and you reminded me, so thank you so much. Commissioners, do you have questions for Mr. Kraus? Commissioner O'Brien, are you all set? Commissioner Cameron? Commissioner Hill?
I was a little taken aback when you started talking about predatory practices and the fact that the B-52s were going to be going to Medford and then ended up going over to Encore. Are there any other examples that you could share with us where there have been predatory practices like this?
That's one that I specifically know. I would have to refer to Bill Blumenreich, who does this on a daily basis. But in talking to his booking representative from Bill Blumenreich that does the Chevalier Theater and the Wilbur Theater in Boston and some other venues, they said they called it the casino play. The agents know it. It's a small circle of people that do this work, and when they know a casino is competing, then they ratchet up what they're asking for, and very frequently they get it. So that's what is the most difficult thing for venues like ours to compete with. And like Lynn Auditorium is owned by the city of Lynn, just like Chevalier Auditorium is owned by the city of Medford. Lynn runs it with its own staff. I don't know if they're speaking today. We have a contract with a professional management company that books and operates them. But I guess, as I explained, they have limited revenue streams to make the shows successful and don't have anything else to fall back on. But in terms of other specific ones, I don't have numbers or specific anecdotal information that says, they 2 or 3 times more. I do know the B-52 was one that was tentatively booked for Chevalier, and they lost that one. Some of the other performers were listed in our letter. The Straight No Chaser show was another one that I know Chevalier was competing for. Again, Bill Blumenreich could give you specific numbers on that. The comedian Wayne Brady also performed there, the Dropkick Murphys. So ones that typically would perform in venues of our size.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing to address Commissioner Hill's question on that, Chairperson Judge Stein?
Absolutely. Yes.
The term, thank you. The term predatory is an interesting and kind of a sexy term, but that's not really the issue. The issue, respectfully, the issue is that the law was written, and it's very clear, thou shalt not build an entertainment venue with 1,000 to 3,500 seats. And whether an act is potentially, possibly could be booked at another theater it's interesting to think about it. And if there was ever a civil lawsuit for unfair competition and you wanted to talk about damages, that might be very germane. But right now, what we're talking about on this particular issue is that the law says you can't do it, and they've been doing it. And whether the acts were, potentially going to go to another theater or not, the law, I believe, was specifically written so that you didn't have to analyze that. It's very clear. They can have whatever acts they want in a theater that has less than 1,000 seats or more than 3,500. And if they don't put on the entertainment in that way, shape, or form, then it's a violation of the law. Thank you.
I just had a follow-up question for that, Mr. Rabinowitz. If EBH puts on a show outside, no seats, in an outside area in that range that's excluded under the statute, would you read that to be a strict violation of the statute or no?
No, I would not. It says seats. For better or for worse, that's what the law says. It says, thou shalt not build an entertainment venue with those amount of seats.
And and so the ballroom having seats that are moved potentially in and out, you see as not a differentiator?
No difference in my mind. If they're having an event like the seating charts that I presented in my written material, you can see those seats right there. One of them, I think it was the Straight No Chaser seating chart. There's 2,300 seats right shown right there. Yeah, the Straight No Chaser show. So whether you can move seats in or out is besides the point. They're using that ballroom as an entertainment venue with a number of seats in there that violates the law.
Thank you.
I'd like a follow-up question to Mr. Vinovitz. And the input is very helpful for us, so thank you. All three provided really valuable input. If the event is put on, sponsored, not by the licensee, the casino, but rather by a third party, do you see a distinction?
Not if it's being put on in the gaming licensee's physical room, no. They built a room that they're now using for entertainment with seats that violate the statute. And whether some other entity is actually doing the booking to that room, if they built the room, then they violated the law.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. Were you leaning in? Okay.
No.
No, that's okay. Commissioner Hill, are you all set? Do you have a follow-up? All set. Commissioner Cameron, are you all set? Oh, okay. Mr. Kraus, back to you. Do you have additional comments that you'd like to make?
Just from that last dialogue there, the competition is such that some people do pay more within the venues that we're talking about, and occasionally there'll be a show come up and say, "Hey, did you see so got that show?" And they're like, "I'd never pay that much for that money." So it happens that you're free to pay whatever you think you can recoup. Then you have to price your tickets accordingly. So, but again, the casino has much more, basically unlimited resources to put that money toward what they pay the performer to come. And in some cases, as was mentioned, there's geographical restrictions. And some of the venues that are currently operating do the same thing. They say you can't perform within a certain radius or within a certain number of months from that. So I think that it does happen. I would, the question about the outdoor venue, I guess there would be a technical difference between seats and an outdoor venue, but I do recall that in the ruling that the commission made, I think in 2019, about what constitutes the gaming establishment area, the outside areas were included. There was a gazebo and there was a green space and things like that. So, I mean, if they wanted to put something out there that was more than 1,000 attendants, then you get into capacity versus seats. But I think that would violate the spirit of the law. And then the last question about, could a third party put a show on across the street or something that would not necessarily be considered part of the gaming establishment? That's probably how they would do it. But as I stated at the beginning, Encore, Wynn Resorts and its multiple subsidiaries that they put forth on the 10th, they're going to continue to own everything over there. So the bottom line to me is they're the owner, they're the licensee, and whether they're putting on the shows themselves or they're using a third party to put them on, if that's that's part of the gaming establishment over there, because the licensee is the owner, it's physically connected, and they should not be allowed to put on shows of the size that we talked about. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, any follow-up again from Mr. Kraus? Thank you. Joe, I think we're all set at this point. Thank you so much, Mr. Kraus.
So yeah, so actually next up we have a late edition, Mayor Brianna Longo-Cohn from Medford. Mayor.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you for the time. I'll be brief because I know our attorney and Mr. Kraus and Troy from Hanover have stated quite a bit, and we did submit public comment on Friday. But I just also want to argue that these two LLCs are one and the same, and having a walkway, which makes it very clear that the facility is attached. I know the last meeting, it was said that Encore was not trying to be cute, but I feel with these two decisions you have to make, that is exactly what they're trying to do. And I just ask that you go back to the reason that the legislation was put in place and that was to protect small theaters such as the Chevalier in Medford and the Hanover, the theater in Hanover, and many other communities. And I'm not speaking to you as an attorney, although I am one. I'm speaking to you as mayor who is trying to make sure that the economy flourishes here in Medford, our downtown economy, as well as our Chevalier Theater that we've owned for a very long time. Luckily, we have Bill Blumenwright, who has done great work and brought the economy up to where we are today. And we've suffered through COVID like everybody else. But I think there's a purpose for Encore. And as one who's been there, I think it's wonderful, but I really hope that you look at why that legislation was put in place and rule accordingly. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do we have questions for her? And we have generous amount of time for today's conversation, so there doesn't need to be any restrictions. Commissioner Cameron, are you all set for Mayor Longo-Cone? Commissioner O'Brien? All set? Commissioner Hill?
All set.
I think at this time, it would be really helpful for us to be reminded, Joe, and Mayor Longo-Cone, of the community mitigation support that I think Medford has been quite strategic in accessing, and we're delighted when we see applications from Medford, but also a reminder of the agreement that I think ends up supporting. There's the surrounding community agreement does support some dollars to Chevalier, and I think it's important for us to know that some as we think about our decision ahead.
I believe it's 100,000 a year. Is that correct? I don't have the agreement right in front of me, but.
I could interject there if you like. So the city entered into a surrounding community agreement, separate from the ILEV agreement,
Right.
to provide $100,000 a year directly for Chevalier Theater, which we've gotten 3 payments of. There's also a fund that the city gets, the Medford Community Fund from the casino, that's $125,000, and that can be used at the discretion of the city. For example, one year when the grant process was announced, the Friends of Chevalier applied for $10,000 to help refurbish the gymnasium floor in the recreation center underneath the theater. We were successful in getting that. So it's $100,000 directly for the theater, $125,000 for general use for the city. And then prior to that, early on, there was some work that Wynn agreed to help pay for to make some transportation improvements in the Wellington Circle area, particularly on the east side of Medford near Everett. And then, as was mentioned, we have gotten some grants from the mitigation fund for some other transportation related improvements particularly on that side of town, Wellington, Station Landing area, River's Edge area.
So we'll put a plug in for our community mitigation program, Madam Mayor. Chief Delaney runs that, and we're always delighted when we see the communities access those critical dollars. But Commissioners, just a reminder, right now, under the surrounding community agreement, $100,000 does go directly to the theater. Mayor,
it may be worth clarifying too. I mean, we were in a different time as a city then. We did not have professional management company running the building. So $100,000 was appealing because that at that stage point could mean that we could put on maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 shows. Because the city was doing it with an all volunteer commission and a very part-time 1-person booking agent who mostly fielded calls for rentals at that point. So $100,000 is, while we certainly appreciate it, most of that money is now, since we have a professional management company who puts up all the money for the events. The city of Medford has no risk at all on the success or failure of the events. The booking company that runs the events, manages the events, books the events, puts up the money of his own. And we from that we get $1 per ticket to go for the restoration of the building. But the $100,000, the current level of acts that Bill Blumenreich brings in might pay for one show, two shows. So in the big picture, while we greatly appreciate it, it's not a lot of money in terms of keeping the theater viable or competitive in the market that we face in terms of going head to head with the casino.
I live in a nearby town, so I do go by south on 93 to go to work, and have seen the billboards advertising the programming for Chevalier Theater, and you have had rich success. I know Commissioner Hill follows it carefully too, because he does the same route. Are you able to tell us how many bookings you have right now planned through a certain month or for the year?
The average before the COVID was just about 100 a year. Bill's goal is to have 200 per year. I know this month we had a couple in the early part of the year, we had some postponements due to COVID. January is kind of light traditionally anyway. Just looking at the schedule earlier this morning, there's about 12 shows, I believe, in March, similar amount in April and May. So we'll be close to, if not over, the 100 shows again this year.
So that's a great sign that it's ramping up. Congratulations. Any other questions? All right. Mayor Longo-Cohn, thank you, and thank you for your leadership. All right. Chief Delaney.
So we had, in one of the letters that we got, a letter from the city of Beverly and the Cabot Theater. They had expressed some interest in speaking here. We reached out to them but didn't hear back. I just wanted to check and see if any of the folks on the phone, if that is anyone from the city of Beverly or the Cabot Theater.
Hi, this is Casey Sword from the Cabot. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, great, thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you so much.
we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the time. Our concerns are very similar to those that have been brought up by our friends in Medford and Hanover, and we share all of these sentiments. Our specific concern is more regarding the predatory booking practices that have been talked about kind of at length here, and I don't want to talk too much more about them, but the Cabot is an important cultural and economic landmark in Beverly, where economic impact is anywhere from 10 to 12 million. We're hoping to get back to that level this year, now that we're coming out of COVID. The concern that we have is now even with the reduced capacity, the Cabot Theater, we're the smallest theater of our cohort, where we're at 850 seats. So a venue of 990 seats or less would put us in direct competition. And like our other friends in the market, we understand competition well, but we are concerned about predatory competition with the Cabot, which could be totally detrimental to our ability to exist. And so we understand the law and what it is, but we're voicing our concern, with the size and with these predatory practices that we've seen all over the country and other states where this has happened.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sword, for your comments. Commissioners, do you have questions? Commissioner Hill, this is a nearby neighboring community to your home. I know that you know the Cabot quite well.
Been there many times. It's a beautiful theater and always enjoyable when we go.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien, are you all set? Okay, Commissioner Cameron. All set. Thank you. And thank you again for your submission too. We appreciate the fact that you've reduced it to writing as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chief Delaney?
Okay, so that was all of the folks that we had who registered or responded. Crystal, have we gotten any additional emails from folks?
We have a request from Lee Farrington.
Oh, you're muted there, Crystal.
You went.
Oh, sorry. We had a request from Lee Farrington, and if Lee is on the call, just as a reminder, you can push *6 to unmute.
Oh, hello. I'm a clinical social worker, and I'm also a resident of Chelsea. And I'm very concerned about any expansion of Encore. As a clinical social worker, I have observed over the years the ramifications of gambling addiction. And no matter, what Encore might claim, its purpose is to make money off of people losing large sums of money. And Wynn himself was actually quite open about this. This comes, of course, with increase in crime. The surrounding communities have, accepted mitigation for this purpose. And this proposal really has no positive impact that I could see on the quality of life in the surrounding communities. In addition to I know this word's been overused today, but in addition to their predatory business model, they're also in questionable compliance with their license. And I really don't see any benefit to allow an organization of this nature with the track record of the purpose of casinos in general, allowing it further expansion into the community. And in addition, the density of the neighborhood, I don't think supports it. And I also support what other people have been saying today about the negative impact on local arts communities. And so thank you very much for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Ms. Farrington. Could you just let us know again the community that you're from, please?
Oh, I'm from Chelsea.
Oh, from Chelsea. Thank you. And thank you for your work in clinical social work. It's so important. So thank you very much. And so difficult questions for Ms. Farrington, commissioners. Everybody seems to be all set. I will note that March 1st kicks off Problem Gambling Awareness Month, and the Massachusetts Gaming Commission's Director of Research and Responsible Gaming is very involved with his team in working on important initiatives with our 3 licensees on those matters. So to your concerns, Ms. Farrington, that we're very fortunate that the our guardian legislation also gives really additional resources to address healthy choices in gambling. So thank you.
Mr. Delaney, it's Paul Donato. I registered when you sent me the letter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess, well, we'll take you right now then. How about that?
Good morning. Good morning, Representative. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing fine, and I say hello to all of the commissioners. You're doing a great job, and you always make sure that you have the public's welfare in mind.
Yes.
I'm not going to reiterate what has been. I'm not going to reiterate what has been said by people much more articulate than I. But what I want to do is at least focus on one thing. Commissioner Hill was pointing out that the venue of the Encore Casino and the predatory acts that they bring into their casino in the ballroom are a separate issue, and we hope that the commission takes a look at that and says that that's not in the spirit of what the legislation was. But the second part that I want to emphasize is that the walkway that is being talked about from the casino to this other venue. The walkway, if you ask the designers, they'll tell you that the walkway goes right to the casino floor. So, I mean, it's very evident that this is, without a doubt, part of the casino, just in, just in a different way. So I would hope the commissioners take those two things into consideration, and I appreciate the opportunity to.
Thank you, Representative. Commissioners, do you have questions for Representative Donato?
Well, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your calling in. Crystal, do you have any other names that have joined?
This time we have no other requests to speak.
So Joe,
Well, I thought maybe we could just ask if there is anyone that's on the phone. If they haven't spoken and would like to speak, you can do so at this time. Just need to do, is it *6, Crystal?
Yeah.
Unmute.
Yes, *6.
So if while we're just speaking, again, if there's anyone who wishes to either email Crystal Howard to say you'd like to provide comments, our public hearing extends to 1. In the event that you just can't get quite off your lunch break, but you want to email, get to your lunch break and you want to speak between now and 1, you would email Crystal, and it's crystal.howard@massgaming.gov. Crystal.
CRYSTAL.
Yeah, CRYSTAL.Howard, HOWARD, @massgaming.gov.
Yes. We do have one request that just came in.
Okay, great.
From a Georgia Green. Are you on the call, Georgia? And again, it's *6 to unmute. Oh, looks like. There we go.
Good afternoon. Ms. Green? Joe and Crystal, can you see, is there something that we need to do to help her? Looks like she's off mute. Ms.
I
Green?
do have someone go off mute, but then went back on it.
Yeah, I saw that too. Ms. Green? So it's *6. If you find yourself on mute, if you could press *6. Oh.
I will send
can-
them the link as well in case they are having trouble.
That's great. So Joe, I think you're right. We are going to remain open, right, through 1 o'clock. Before if we pause a bit, I do want to give everybody, anybody a sort of last minute chance before we pause. I want to thank those who have contributed already. This is, it's such an important issue and so important for us to hear from key stakeholders. You took a lot of time. We also received multiple public comments from constituents. Joe, that really in many ways echoed your sentiments today. So we'll be considering those as we go forward, as well as your testimony today. Our meeting today is a public hearing and a public meeting. There's an opportunity for us to address any other business. We won't be adjourning, commissioners, until the 1 o'clock hour, but we could certainly video out and mute out, and Crystal and Joe would be monitoring if any more members of the public want to participate. We want to make sure that every voice is heard. I did want to note, and it's relevant to today's discussion, that because we do have an upcoming meeting on this issue and set aside March 10th, as Joe mentioned, I have asked General Counsel Gross and Chief Delaney to look into the law as it pertains to the ballroom and events and the current scheduling. So that work is underway. I don't know if my fellow commissioners were curious, but certainly it was the input that we got today that I learned about the planned March 17th event. So, work is underway for us, Commissioner Hill, to your earlier point, whether we'd be looking into it, and Joe and Todd and Karen will be, giving us more guidance on that going forward. Commissioners, do you have any other business that you want to take advantage of today? Okay. So Crystal and Joe, do you want to explain how this is going to work now so that we can make sure not to keep this a live public hearing?
Yes. First, let me just let you know that I did receive another email from Miss Green,
Okay.
who is on the call. I'm just waiting to see if we can unmute ourselves but I don't know the number. So Miss Green, again, it's *6, not #6. And, or you can shoot me an email and I can unmute you myself, but I don't know your phone number.
Yeah, we need that phone number. It gets so tricky.
There.
Oh.
Oop. Are you? Okay, let me see. It went unmute again. I think it's the 8536 number. Let me pull that one. Oh, I think it went away. Actually.
That's
I'm not sure. I
interesting.
guess we're having some technical difficulties.
Well,
oh wait, here we go. Let me try to
Okay.
unmute this.
It's interesting. It's fleeting. Her yellow.
Yeah, it
right
is
when-
unmuting, but.
Hello?
Okay. Whoa, there we
Oh,
go.
there we have it.
Oh my gosh, finally. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I am a clinical social worker who has worked for 32 years in the Chelsea community with citizens of that community and the surrounding areas, and am very familiar with the history of Encore and whatever. And as a previous speaker mentioned, I have a lot of concerns about compulsive gambling and how gambling really impacts underserved communities, which Chelsea is one of, as are other communities in the area. So that is one concern, which obviously is not the topic for today. But in hearing I've been on the call since 1 o'clock, and I'm really concerned about the comments that I've heard from the other communities and the legal people and whatever about the constant seeming violations of the licensure of the casino, for one. And I think that what that says about the intent of the establishment in the area, which is not necessarily for the benefit of those underserved communities and the people who are living at the foot of this building. And my thought would be that expansion is not something that I think will benefit the communities in the area, but something that will continue to impinge on them in a very negative way. And my thought is that it would be in the best interest of Encore to become, actually not just to be, but to become a good neighbor. And if there were something that they wanted to do that would benefit, the communities, not just for the present, but ongoing, would be to perhaps build a park across the street, or it's something that families could use for free, people who live in that area who could recreate with their families, plant trees to improve the quality of the environment, and because that concerns me, given the traffic situation that has always been horrible along that route, and which has only become worse with Encore being there. And I think that the pollution that goes into the air and into the soil around there, just based on the trucks and cars idling and parking and whatever, is
terrible. So I think if they wanted to really be a good neighbor, building some kind of a park for people in the area would go a long way. And that's all I have to say today, and I appreciate very much the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Joe, can you remind us, is there a contemplated green space? Did I read that?
There's going to be some plantings along the front of the buildings and so on, but there's no particular
No public access.
large green space,
Yeah.
I mean, there'll definitely be landscaping, but.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions or comments from Ms. Green? All set? Okay, it looks like we're all set. Thank you very much, Ms. Green, for joining today all morning. We appreciate your input and we appreciate your work, particularly on behalf of those who are encountering gambling challenges and problems. So thank you. And thanks for your good work.
Thank you.
Okay. Joe and Crystal, do we have others who have joined?
This time.
Okay, that appears to be it. So I guess we'll just, Crystal and I will just stay on the line until 1 o'clock. And I guess the commissioners will need to come back to adjourn the meeting at 1. But we'll stay on the line in case someone joins late, and we can, Crystal, you'll text folks if they need to jump right back on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
And commissioners, it's not too bad. It's only 15 minutes. So if you can just, we can probably linger near our computers, but I think we should reconvene at 12:55 so we can adjourn out properly. Does that make sense, commissioners? Okay. To those who have stayed on and members of our team, thank you so much for joining this important discourse. We appreciate very much your contributions today. Okay.
And I guess the folks who are on, that you're free to go. We'll stay on until.
Or they're free to stay. Certainly, we
Certainly, if they would
will.
like.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe, so much.
Hello, if you just joined the call and you're looking to provide public testimony, you can email crystal.howard@massgaming.gov to get on the list, and the commissioners will return. The public hearing is open through 1 p.m.
Hi, Dave. We're coming back now. If you want to, your screen is perfect.
I'm just trying to figure out how to unshare it right now.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Commissioners, I'll just do a quick roll call so that we can confirm we're all here again. Commissioner Cameron,
I am here.
Commissioner O'Brien,
I am here.
Commissioner Hill.
Present.
Okay, so we're all set. Chief Delaney and Crystal, do you have any additional members of the public who wish to speak?
I did have one individual join the call, but I have received no request to speak
Okay,
through email.
all right. Joe, did you want to invite comment? For anybody who's joined, if you wish to speak?
If anyone would like to speak, who has joined in the last few minutes, if you hit *6 on your phone, you can unmute and give us any comments you have at this point.
Okay. And for those who did speak, is there anything else that you thought of who are still on? I see Mr. Kraus. Anything that you wish that you had commented on before that you want to add?
Well, thank you. If I could, I did speak with the representative of Bill Blumenreich Presents to try to get some more information about the competition that we encountered, Bill encountered for events with Encore. He did mention that there were a couple of other shows like Straight No Chaser that Bill did have a bid in on, but it wasn't necessarily a situation where we lost it to that factor. Tony Bennett was another one that they were close to having an agreement on, but I think the Tony Bennett show might have been a private show there, but the representative reiterated that the model that venues like ours follow is there's a break even on every show, and they need to know if the economics works in terms of what they're going to pay, what they offer the artists to perform there, and then what they can charge on tickets, what they can recoup, can they make the money and make some of the profit. Well, that is really not a factor, as we talked about with the casino, because they can pay over the going rate and get the act to come because they're not reliant on the revenue generated in the typical fashion from the ticket sales and the concession sales. They can cover the costs through the money that they get through other sources, gambling, restaurants, and things like that. The other thing he suggested that we pay close attention to is the design of the building across the street, because there are venues that are quite creative in terms of a sort of a performance space that is surrounded by, or there's a ring of restaurants around them, and they have views into the venue itself. So the venue itself might only be a certain number of seats, but there could be an open level of a restaurant adjacent to it, looking down into the venue, that they would be able to take in the entertainment, maybe as part of their restaurant tab or something like that. So just to suggest you pay close attention to that if it gets to that point on the design, and be careful on what the capacity actually is versus how many could actually participate in the show. So thanks for letting me add that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions on the follow-up, commissioners? All set? Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to add any comments? Joe?
Nope, I think we're all set. We'll just, we'll take all the information we have here and we'll prep for our meeting on March 10th.
March 10th. Commissioners, are you all set? Any additional business? Then I would ask for a motion to adjourn with a huge thank you to those who contributed today. Thank you so much. Commissioner O'Brien?
Yes, Madam Chair, move to adjourn.
Thanks.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments? Okay. Commissioner Cameron.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0. Thank you. Thank you specifically to Joe. A very well managed meeting over a weekend. So thank you for getting us so prepared. And to Crystal, thank you so much for all the orchestration, and to Dave Souza for coordinating all of the communications today. We appreciate it so much. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.